think we just need to make him feel quite at home. So I'd like you just to do a little with your hands and so go. Be the actual gate. Be the water coming in and out. So get your hands here, and then you're gonna go. Yeah, so not a lot of physical exertion, just a little bit. Here we go, and so beautiful, so beautiful. You are now traveling in time and space. That is fantastic. Well, I must say, without this next guest, we would be having a very dull weekend. No Stargate. So really, we have a lot to thank our next guest for. So ladies and gentlemen, do not adjust your picture. Our next guest is going to take us sci-fi travelers to the outer limits with all things Stargate. Stargate SG-1, Stargate Atlantis, Stargate Universe. Please welcome to FedCon 33, the producer, co-creator, screenwriter, showrunner, Mr. Brad Wright.
Thank you, everybody. I have to sit. I have to sit because 3 days ago, I broke a rib. So, just, you can make me laugh, but don't make me sneeze. Do you know how much money we would have saved if we had just done that? It cost $5,000 in season 1 every time one person stepped through a Stargate. $5,000. At the end of 17 seasons, it cost $5,000 for one person to step through a Stargate. Because of inflation, I guess. So I just want to preempt a couple of questions. Yes, there probably will be another Stargate. No, I don't know when. I do know that there's part of the reason there's been a holdout is that MGM was for sale for a significant amount of time before it was actually purchased. So I guess some of you may know too that in just before the pandemic, MGM did ask me to write a new pilot script for Stargate, which made me very excited. And I because Universal, NBC Universal asked me to write it. And so I did. And then the pandemic happened. And then the president of GM got fired. And then Amazon bought MGM. And then that was that for that project. And then that was 6 years ago. But Amazon bought MGM because, in no small way, because Stargate is one of their assets. So I don't know when, but I promise you, they will do something. And because they're taking their time, that just kind of means that it's probably going to be cool. I'm hoping. Because I'm going to be a fan, just like everybody else in this room, of the new show. So that's one that and that's the, other than why am I wincing every few seconds, that was the only thing I wanted to preempt. I'll just open it up to questions, I guess, at this point. I hope somebody has some. And if not, I'll just keep talking. One of the best things about coming to one of these places is getting to see Richard Dean Anderson, who I guarantee you is the reason I'm here. About 3 years ago, we were talking, and he said, "Why do you ever come to these cons?" And I said, "Well, Rick, there's a step 1 to that, and that is you have to be invited." So, I can fix that, I think. So I got invited to Basingstoke last year, and it was great fun. And it was also 1,000 degrees. And it was great. It it was fun, and I think he's the reason I got invited here too. So this is my second convention of any kind, and well, that isn't entirely true because when we were actually making Stargate, we did Comic-Con in San Diego, and we did the big room. We did the big, the 5,000 person room, which was a lot of fun. And the fun part of that was all of the other actors, but not all of them, many of them were comfortable on stage, but many of them were nervous as hell. And I actually like a stage and a microphone. In fact, I like being an MC at weddings. I asked strangers if I could please be an MC at a wedding. And sometimes I get to do that. Anyway, I'm going to just open it up to questions because I know there are some because people are already lining up. Hello.
Hi. First of all, thanks for being a second con, my first, and I say Stargate SG-1 in particular was, after Star Trek, my second love, specifically on how the show was done with all the self-aware humor, but at the same time telling very interesting and heartfelt stories. Episode 100, brilliant, 200 anyway, of course. Yesterday there was a very interesting presentation by Dan Curry about how physical and digital effects were incorporated into 90s TV and then transitioning into 2000s. From a showrunner's perspective and author, what's your take on this shift? Because I always felt that Stargate used a lot of physical models, for example, the Asgard, that always looked tremendous. So was that easy to do, to convince also the studios to not go entirely digital?
It's funny, physical models like for Thor, I mean, it was a very expensive puppet, right? With an animatronic mouth that moved like this, and no kidding, sometimes the mouth broke, and some kind of talked like this, and it was not cool. But there were so many things like the gold, larval gold that came out of Tilt's belly. I hated that, by the way. I was not a fan of that. But once you make the thing and pay for the thing, it's your thing. It's what you're doing now. Because Stargate ran so long, like Star Trek, we saw and felt the evolution in visual effects. So there, just as an example, in season, I think it was season 4, the end of season 3, what I like to do is, as the show was wrapping, because I still had our writers and I knew we were doing another season, I said, okay guys, let's work on next season and make our lives a little easier. So Robert had an idea, and he came in and he pitched an idea where we gate in sort of a submarine through the puddle, through the Stargate, and we're in a water world, and then a creature, comes out after that, and I said, I don't know if we can do this. Let's talk to our visual effects person. And they went, no, sorry, we can't do that. Hiatus goes by, literally just 3 months. Back in the writer's room, developing episodes, and the same guy, our visual effects guy, just knocks on our door and he goes, you know that show, that beat I said you couldn't do last season? You can do it now. Because what happened was, and what began to happen, is that films like, big budget films would design and invent software that became available to the TV world like 6 months later. It was still really expensive. So we evolved, even with the Asgard and things like that, we evolved from the puppet Thor who couldn't walk, which is why Asgard had beaming technology, by the way. He couldn't walk into the room, so we beamed into the room, and that was really the only thing we could do. I felt like we were robbing Star Trek, to be perfectly honest, but it was the only choice we had. And by the way, that's why they did it too, so it's fine. I can't remember, I guess it must have been season 6 or 7, where we could do an Asgard walking into the room. Didn't look great today, but then it felt like magic. And little things like, just staff weapon shots. I mean, things that used to be, we had to count them. How many times you could go through a gate, we had to count them. And the budget would be, we would write a script and our visual effects person would say, we can't do this script as is. And so you would just cut stuff, But by the end, and especially in Stargate Universe, almost, not quite, but almost anything that, we also got better at realizing what we could do. We could write big space sequences, and we could have aliens that were moving around. It was great, and all CG. It's incredible. As far as what can be done now, it's blowing everybody away, and it's blowing my mind. What I wouldn't do, at least certainly not yet, until it becomes more common practice, is use AI to do it, because that's taking food off of somebody's table right now. I wouldn't do that. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank
Great,
you.
thank you. Hi there.
Hello. My question is about travelers. What
you.
would have happened in season 4 if there were a season 4?
Okay, I don't know. Show of hands. Has anybody else seen Travelers? I love it. Thank you. That's great. Netflix basically said at the beginning of season 3 that it was probably going to be our last season. And the reason is they don't have an advertising-based model, right? So they don't make more money if a show continues into season 4 like the old way of doing television. A streamer just sees diminishing returns unless it becomes a big hit. And they liked the show a lot and thought, maybe it'll be a big hit. Spoiler, it was not a big hit. But it was big enough that they were very happy with the show. So they said, leave the door open a crack for the possibility of a 4th season. So I did. And with the whole version 2, but basically I wrapped up the show after 3 seasons, and at the very end, because it was a time travel show. You should watch it if you haven't. It's a good show. I'm very proud of it. But I left the door open for season 4. And so what would have happened in very short terms, because a lot of people haven't seen it, is McLaren was in 2001. And we were going to go in the first episode through time to present day, and he was going to prevent the deaths of his team, just like the director would have in another timeline. And he would have used those same people to do things in a different way, to try to change the path. Because the theme of Travelers was, we have to fix it. Here and now. We can't let the future do it for us. And so that's what McLaren would have realized by then, and put together a team of people with his own knowledge of the future to make change and affect change. And then we would have been up against other forces from the future trying to stop us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Spoiler. Hi there.
Hi, Brad. Thank you so much for joining the con circuit. It's awesome to hear from you directly. You're on record as being a real sci-fi aficionado and lover for all time. When you're cooking up your next ideas or your stories or your themes you want to explore, how do you find that line between what you have seen already and know is out there and what is the idea that you want to convey and get across to everyone?
That's a great question. Well, I like to watch science fiction. And if I go into a network or a streamer or any buyer really and pitch something that isn't science fiction, they look at me like I have 2 heads. They just, I've been doing this for 30 years and not since a show called Black Stallion that I wrote on in 1991, have I not done science fiction. But I love science fiction because it isn't one genre, it's all of them. You know, the Stargate allowed us to do medical shows, military shows, mysteries, all of the, anything you can think of you can do under the umbrella of science fiction. You know, political commentary. You know, you can say things in science fiction that you couldn't get away with directly. And it's not like you should ever be overtly political, because you won't find, or you'd be limiting your audience too much. But there are some universal truths out there. I love talking about identity, who we are, what a human being is. It's something that we're all struggling with right now in the world. And it's very much a part of every single person's life. And so that is the theme that I'm writing about now. And how that manifests in my ideas has varied many times in the last 5 or 6 years. So what happens is, when you develop a show, you can't go into a network. I've done it, and it's a mistake, so I don't do it anymore. You don't go into a buyer and say, so I got an idea about a monkey and a dog, what do you think? You don't do that, you can't do that. You need to develop the whole damn thing. You need your characters, you need your pilot story, you need to know the arc. You need to know the arc of season 1, and you need to know what season 2 could be, at least where it's going to begin and end. You need to know where it's going to go, and that takes a lot of time and effort. So, one of the reasons I'm doing variations of the same theme is because I'm not letting it go. I keep going back to the same well until I get to make the damn thing. It varies, however it changes. So, I'm going to go out again with a new idea that is very much about identity, and it is very, very science fiction too. Does that answer your question?
It does. I was also wondering, as part of a follow-up, do you ever lovingly borrow from other things you've seen, or even from yourself, maybe redevelop an idea you had?
Oh, you mean steal, of course. How do you know?
Borrow, lovingly.
You can't, I can't remember who said it, famous person, might have been Picasso. Amateurs borrow, artists steal. The truth is, there aren't that many stories, and when you love something, when you love like I love Star Trek. I love it. I got into this business so I could write Star Trek. I pitched Star Trek in 1989. Was it 1989? Yeah. And trying to, get on Next Generation. And ended up getting work in Canada, and that was that. My career took off in a different direction. But it's impossible not to borrow or steal. And by the way, I watch stuff now and I go, hey, didn't I write that? I think I did write that. But I probably stole it too, so I can't really, it's just what it is, and it's fun, So yes, the short answer, too late, but the short answer is yes, of course. Thank you.
First, very, very big thank you.
Can't quite hear you.
A bit more to the micro then. First, a very big thank you. You've inspired so many people, including myself. You and the show are a big reason why I became an aerospace engineer, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
But to the more important thing here, the question. We had, in the very beginning, we had this Roland Emmerich film, Stargate. And then this transitioned into the series. As you've been there from the start, how did that come to pass? Where came the idea? When did you get involved?
When did I get involved in Stargate to begin with?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I was doing The Outer Limits. So your question is, how did I get involved with Stargate? Period?
Yes.
Okay.
How did you
Okay.
get involved, and how did Stargate come to pass
Okay.
as a series?
So I was doing The Outer Limits in Vancouver, and having the time of my life. Best job I ever had. So much fun. We were doing like a little movie every week and a half. It was so great. Jonathan Glassner and I were making shows together, and we were very successful when he directed and I wrote. And we wrote together sometimes, and we developed ideas together. And then we both saw the movie Stargate, and we both said to ourselves, this would be a pretty good television series. So I approached MGM on my own and said, hey, Stargate would make a great television series. And he approached MGM on his own and said, Stargate could be a pretty good television series. And so the president of MGM at the time, John Symes, said, yeah, guys, no kidding, you think we haven't thought of that? And so he, one day he's in town, he's up in Vancouver, we're making The Outer Limits. John gets called into a meeting with John Symes, and it's a long meeting. He comes out and I go, what the hell was that about? He says, you're next, go in. And I went, what? He said, it's a good thing, trust me. So he says, we're going to do a Stargate. We want you and Jonathan to do it. You cool with that? And I said, yeah, I'm cool with that. That sounds great. He said, great, perfect, love it. You have to do The Outer Limits too. And I went, we are the guys making The Outer Limits too, right? He said, yeah, you can do it. So we did it. We developed 22 episodes of The Outer Limits and 22 episodes of Stargate at the same time.
Yeah.
We were insane. And it hurt. It hurt the show. I think the beginning of Stargate has a few very weak episodes because our focus was split. And I think we could all agree, let's face it, that there were some weak episodes in that first bunch. But eventually we convinced MGM to let us just do Stargate, and I think the show found its feet and got better and better. We knew, by the way, from the beginning, we were doing 44 episodes. Nobody gets that anymore. So that really allowed us to build a world differently than a normal television show would. We just set out to make 44 episodes. Before the end of season 1, they gave us another season. Insane. We knew we were going 5 years after season 1. So that's the short story. The rest is, a lot of typing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you very, very much.
Hello,
Hi there.
and thank you for being here, even being injured. Thank you for being here, even with a broken rib.
Yes, thank you.
Can you tell us how Stargate Universe came to be? Because it was a completely different take on the Stargate thing with the spaceship and everything.
Yes. Well, Sci-Fi approached us after they said we knew they were unsure that they could do Stargate Atlantis beyond season 5. And it had nothing to do with anything but money. They had not set the future up with Atlantis in a way that was going to make it very easy to continue. And
Did
said,
you ever do shows longer than 5 years at Sci-Fi?
it's a long time, 5 years, yes, but that's really what the problem was. So they said they literally said we want something different. We want something a little darker. We want something a little edgier. And that suited Robert and I because we had done hundreds of hours of the other shows at that time. So we kind of took it upon as a challenge, but nobody said, we want something like Battlestar Galactica. Nobody said that was the mandate. I wanted to do something that was more of a drama, a little more real. And part of what was behind it for me was not just the challenge of it, but because I wanted to play in a slightly different sandbox, if you will. We had written a lot of the other kind of show. But we also wanted humor to be part of it as well. We probably should have leaned into it more. I have to admit, the pacing was too slow at the beginning. We were a little too self-indulgent. But I think by the end of season 2, it was a show I was very proud of and would have loved to continue. And then MGM went into a structured bankruptcy, and that was that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Good afternoon. I've got 2 questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The first one, universe ended unfortunately at a cliffhanger. I'm not sure if you can share a little bit of what would have happened in season 3.
What would have in season 3? Well, Eli survives. It's funny because there was a period of time there when the show ended. I asked MGM, listen, I still have all these sets. Could you please let me at least make a movie, a made-for-television movie that wrapped up the story that would have been season 3? And the guy at MGM said, sure, start writing, and we'll figure out a way to keep the sets up. So what was happening at the time, unfortunately, was the bottom of the DVD market had fallen. We couldn't make it anymore. So everything I was going to do in season 3, which was, and leading even beyond, which was ultimately to answer that question that was the Destiny's mission, which was to find out what the source of that structure that was that the ancients saw that predated the existence of the universe. The answer to that question was going to be answered. And I didn't even 100% know what that answer was. I just knew the steps I wanted to take toward it. And there was multiple answers it could be, but it was obviously about that, about finishing the mission. But Eli was, in the time that everybody was in stasis, was going to have fixed a lot of the ship. And he was also going to get really buff, which he, by the way, did. He phoned me once and said, Brad, I'm working out and I'm getting kind of buff. If this movie goes, is that cool? And I went, go for it, man. And get as buff as you can. And for the last, 10 years, he's just turned into this gym rat, and he looks amazing. So, Eli survived. He saved the ship, and we would have continued on our adventures dealing with which I thought was fun, the human descendants of the Destiny itself, because they moved on in the previous season. So more humans too on planets, and that's all I have to say about that. You had another question?
Yes, very cool, thank you. My second question is, you mentioned you liked Star Trek.
Yeah.
If you could write an episode for any series, what would it be, which series, and what would the episode be about?
What would it might have been one of the pitches that I actually went in with, because I pitched Star Trek years and years ago, with a couple of pitches. I had a couple of ideas. I so loved Picard season 3. It was so good. In fact, I had not met Jonathan Frakes or Michelle Hurd in person until yesterday, and I gushed like a fanboy and said, "You guys are so cool!" And I thought they were wonderful in it, and Jonathan's work in front of and behind the camera, he's a terrific director. And Terry did a masterful job with a wonderful theme that old people still have value, which I personally connect to. And so, yeah, they're still making it. There's still a chance. I'd love to write one. I love Enterprise too, it's very good. Not Enterprise, I loved Enterprise, but I love Brave New World. For some reason I keep calling it Enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there.
Hello. I hope no one already asked that because I had to come a bit late. So, if you could travel back in time to the beginning of Stargate and change something that's in your hand, right? Like doing a plot in a different direction and developing a character, something. What would it be?
I would change a couple of things. I would not have done a couple of the episodes we did. I would not have had the Gould come out of Tilt's stomach with a silly little X like that. I would not have had the Gould necessarily look like that. I would not have had a Zat gun look like a penis. I would not have had, although I did stop doing it eventually, but the third shot, making something disappear, that's just silly. Pointed at the planet, for God's sakes. There's a bunch of little things. But on the whole, you know, I can't help but be proud of it, you know, on the whole.
And you should.
In hindsight, there's always things that you would do differently. In editing, I'm always trying to fix things. Oh, and that line. Just because my sex organs are on the inside instead of the outside doesn't mean I can't handle anything you can handle. Yeah, I would not have. I didn't write that line, and I tried to cut it. But yeah, I redid. One of the reasons I did a second version of Children of the Gods was to get rid of that whole. And I did. It worked fine. There's always regrets. Everybody. I mean, the thing about a television show is you make it and it's there forever. You know, and it's on television a lot. Stargate. And you know, I'm in my little gym or playing with my grandson, and the TV will be on, and it'll be Stargate, and I'll look and I'll go, oh shit, I don't like that one very much, and I'll turn it off. Or it'll be one that I really enjoyed making, and sometimes the fondness of the memory of making it supersedes the quality of the episode itself, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. First of all, thank you that you gave us hope that a new Stargate series will be there in the near future. But my question is there any chance that we get a HD or 4K version of the series? Like an update?
Oh, you mean?
Better picture, all these things.
Oh, upgrade. You mean an upgraded version of SG-1?
Yeah, like a 4K release, Blu-ray release, all the things.
Okay, here's the problem. I'm going to get technical for just a second. Back in 1996, when we started making the show, I was conceiving making the show. It aired in 97, but we started conceiving it in 96. MGM made the kind of dumb decision to save just a little bit of money and shoot on 16 millimeter instead of 35. It's very hard to up-res 16 millimeter to 4K because the blacks just go into mud. It just becomes so compressed and so ugly, and that's the problem. We've done it. I mean, we've done up conversions into that, but it doesn't look great. And so they showed me, and I said, yeah, that's pretty good. But their own QC people at MGM, this was years ago, said, no, it's not good enough, we can't do it. I think they have since done some, but that's what suffers, and that's the problem. It's purely technical. And you can't go back and fix it. You can't go back in time. I made a whole show about that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi. It's so nice that you're here, so welcome. Well, I'm really happy that you're here at FedCon. I've got a question relating to, basically your teaser of there being a new Stargate show. I've always enjoyed that Stargate SG-1 in particular has like more of a positive take and vibe, and it's a bit more optimistic and hopeful. So I was wondering to what degree you're able to, I don't know, maybe convince Amazon, I suppose, to kind of keep that tone. And maybe as a follow-up question, what is like a non-negotiable element to the vibe of Stargate and Stargate SG-1 in particular that you'd like to see to continue in that new show?
Okay, these are smart people. They know that they don't want to piss off the people who love the existing franchise that they just spent a ton of money on.
I hope so.
And they learned a lesson from another show recently that I won't mention. That they should stick to what the fans already love a little bit. I don't know. I have not had these conversations, but I'm pretty confident that they're going to try to find a new audience while not alienating the old audience. As far as what's non-negotiable for me personally, I've never said this to anybody, but I think what makes Stargate unique, and certainly separate from other famous franchises with the word star in them, is that it's us. It's people from the here and now going out into space. That's what makes Stargate unique. It's us. It's you know, people from our current Earth. But now, and I think the only difference is it's not us from 1997. It's us from 2025 or 2026 or 2027, whatever year the new show gets released. But I think that they would be crazy not to alienate the existing fan base and not to keep in mind that Stargate belongs in the here and now.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi Brad.
Hi there.
I'm Andy. I got inspired and obsessed with Stargate when I was 12 and went to my first FedCon when I was 15 because I heard Stargate actors are coming. Later on, I got to know someone who studies aerospace engineering. I was like, Stargate aerospace engineering, let's go. So that's what I did. That's how I also got to know Max. And we studied at different universities, so a lot of connections, as you can see. I think seeing strong female characters in sci-fi, especially like Samantha Carter, made a big difference. And I really believe having strong female characters in STEM on TV inspires so many girls to go into STEM later on. And I wondered, was it intentional from the beginning that there would be strong female characters in Stargate? And if so, was it only due to being a military TV show, or were there other reasons as well?
Yes, it was very deliberate to have strong female characters. I have 2 daughters, and so does Jonathan. Actually, Jonathan has daughters too, and so does Robert Cooper. Taylor is a combination of the names of my daughters, Tessa and Kayla, and Imogen is the name of Robert's first 2 daughters, Emma and Megan. That has nothing to do with the question. First of all, congratulations on your academic success. When I talk to actual engineers, it's embarrassing because I just make this shit up, and I have to refer to much smarter people for a lot of our research. But no, I believe in real science. I believe in, even though we go through a puddle to another planet, I like to try to at least root what we do in actual science, and I think that's important. I make personally a huge distinction between science fiction and fantasy, and I'm a science fiction person in my brain. If I could never write, for example, a zombie thing because zombies, break the laws of thermodynamics. And so I go, why are you I get eaten to death arguing with the zombies saying, you shouldn't exist. So I believe in science, and I'm grateful and equally inspired as you were that something that we made made you want to go on in the sciences, and I think that's lovely. I think that's fabulous.
Thank you for the inspiration.
Thank you. Now, that was the end of that. Say thank you. I just want to say thank you very much for being fans of the show for so many years. I cannot believe something that I started in 1996 brings this many people out to celebrate even now. It's very moving to me personally, so thank you.